So today we're going to talk about complementary and supplementary angles. And our objective, students will be able to solve for the measure of an angle based on angles being complementary or supplementary. So we're going to talk about complementary angles first. So two angles are complementary if the sum of their angles equals 90 degrees. If one angle is known, its complementary angle can be found by subtracting the measure of its angle from 90 degrees. So there's a lot of words in there. It's a little complicated. So let's look at an example. So what is the complementary angle of 43 degrees? So you know that 43 and whatever this mysterious angle are going to equal 90 degrees. You could set up an algebraic equation, which we will be doing some things with that next week. You could say, all right, I know 43 plus an unknown. So whenever we have an unknown in math, we should use a variable. So I'm going to use maybe C, doesn't really matter, equals 90, because complementary angles, shouldn't really put the degree sign in, complementary angles add up to 90. And then you would subtract 43. So you'd get C equals 47. So that's why if you know one angle and you're asked to find its complement or complementary angle of whatever that angle is, you can just take that angle and subtract it from 90. So 43 degrees and 47 degrees are complementary angles. And the reason for that is because when you add them up, you get 90 degrees. All right, another example, angle A measures 25 degrees and angle B measures 65 degrees. Angle A and angle B are complementary angles because together they create a 90-degree angle. So, and if I add those two up, I get 90 degrees. It's really that simple and straightforward on the definition. But basically, you're aiming to get to 90 when you're talking about complementary angles. So how can I remember that? Draw C in complementary. So we have the C. Since complementary angles equal 90 degrees, turn that C into a number 9 by drawing a line, then add a 0 after to make it 90. So you can change the C in complementary into 90 degrees. So that's one way you can do it. Another trick to remember, just remember this phrase. It is always right to give complements. A right angle is 90 degrees, and complement and complementary sound alike. The way my math teacher taught me in high school was he talked about right angles, right? When you go to give someone a handshake, your arm is making a 90-degree angle from the shoulder to the elbow and then out. You have a 90-degree. So you're shaking someone's hand to give them a compliment and you're making a 90-degree angle. It's harder to show that on Zoom. So hopefully one of the other two will help you remember complementary. All right, give you guys a few minutes here. Give you a try on this. Two angles are complementary. One of the angles is 36 degrees. Find the other angle. So let's look and see how we get that. So we know when we have two angles that add up to 90 degrees, that's what makes them complementary. So you'd have 36 plus x equals 90. To get x by itself, we just subtract 36. I also do not require that you set all that up, but so x would equal 54. So good job. Nice work. All right, next one. Two angles are complementary. One of the angles is 68 degrees. Find the other angle. All right, so to get there, we know that these complementary angles add up to 90. So we have 68 degrees plus x equals 90. So to get x by itself, we subtract 68. So x equals 22. So good job, guys. A lot of you guys got there. Okay, let's try a different type of problem. There are two angles that measure 47 degrees and 57 degrees. Are these angles complementary? So one person said yes, two people said no. So let's take a look at what we got here. So for two angles to be complementary, they have to add up to 90 degrees. So here we have 47 and 53. When we add these two things up, we actually get 100 degrees. So these are not complementary. They kind of look like they could be, though. They look like about the right numbers. You see the 7 and the 3, you know it's going to even up to a 0. But no, they don't actually add to 90, so. All right, let's try one more of these. There are two angles that measure 26 degrees and 64 degrees. Are these angles complementary? All right, so our general consensus on this is yes, and that is correct. So if we took these two angles, 26 degrees plus 64 degrees, and we added them up, you get, drum roll, 90 degrees. So yes, that would be complementary, because that is what complementary means. All right, before we go on to supplementary angles, does anyone have any questions? Okay, moving on. Supplementary angles. Two angles are supplementary if the sum of their angles equals 180 degrees. If one angle is known, its supplementary angle can be found by subtracting the measure of its angle from 180 degrees. Example of supplementary angles. So this works just like the complementary angles do, but instead of adding to 90, you're now adding to 180 degrees. So the supplementary angle of 143 degrees, you take 180, you subtract 143, you get 37. Angle A measures 120 degrees, and angle B measures 60 degrees. Angle A and angle B are, that should say, supplementary angles, because together they create a 180-degree angle, which, by the way, 180 degrees is those straight angles I talked about, where it's a straight line. In the justification, 180 plus 60 equals, or 120 plus 60 equals 180. So how can I remember that? Draw the S in supplementary. Since supplementary angles equal 180 degrees, turn that S into a number 8 by drawing the line diagonal, then add a 1 in front and a 0 after to make it 180. So you change the S in supplementary into 180. I don't have any other tricks for remembering 180 degrees. It's one of those things where supplementary, hopefully you can remember complementary. And since you know complementary is 90, it helps you remember supplementary is 180. This is the only trick I've ever seen with it. I had an assistant at my last school who actually taught me this. So hopefully it's helpful to somebody. All right, so practice problem for you guys. Two angles are supplementary. One of the angles is 110 degrees. Find the other angle. All right, and let's take a look at what you guys did. So two people said 70, one person said 55. So let's take a look here. So supplementary means we're aiming for 180. So I know one of the angles is 110. All right, plus x, so that's an unknown for the other angle. It's going to add up to 180 degrees. Now I want to get this x by itself. So x equals 70. So the two of you that picked 70, great job. All right, two angles are supplementary. One of the angles is 90 degrees. Find the other angle. All right, let's take a look. So the majority of you said 90, and that's correct. Supplementary, we're aiming for 180. So 90 plus x, because we don't know the other angle, equals 180. You can subtract the 90. And we would get that x equals 90. Two angles, two 90-degree angles that meet up like that, they create a perpendicular situation. So you have the one, I'm going to actually use the line tool here, so it's not quite so bad. So if we took a straight line, this would be supplementary, and we create like that. So we have two 90-degree angles. These are perpendicular. These would meet at a perpendicular situation. Because that's all perpendicular really means is 90 degrees. All right, let's take a look at this one. There are two angles that measure 49 degrees and 131 degrees. Are these angles supplementary? All right, let's take a look. So everybody says yes, and everybody's correct. So again, the definition of supplementary is we add these two things together, and if they equal 180, then we get, and these do. If you added those two numbers, 49 plus 131, you do get 180. All right, last practice problem for today. There are two angles that measure 142 degrees and 48 degrees. Are these angles supplementary? All right, let's take a look what you guys did. So most people said no, one person said not enough information. There is enough information. You know what the two angles are, 142 plus 48. And when you add those together, you actually get 190 degrees. So they are not supplementary. You guys did a good job with that. All right, so summary of today's lesson. Angles that are complementary add up to 90 degrees. Angles that are supplementary add up to 180 degrees. So pretty simple idea today. Hopefully it makes sense because we're going to be building on this, but I wanted to start simple before I put all the algebra into this and all the addition segment stuff. And so hopefully this makes sense. We've got a good building block.